Hey, what up, y'all? It's Curtis from Tesseract TV, and I just stepped into the Vactor-Verse, and it's messy in here.
Yes, this is the Vactor-Verse, and I had to get the all-around media and chicken consumer. I had to get the purveyor of cussy sentences and radio stuffs, Curtis T. Daniels, C. Dizzle Fizzle if you're nasty. Curtis, how you doing?
I'm all right, dude. I told you about reading that bio.
I have to do it because my guest bio is created by the guest. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to do it, whatever it is, it's something that you created. So if you don't like it, that's your fault. But
Yeah.
Curtis comes all the way from Tesseract TV, which is a Marvel streaming podcast, which I highly recommend. I'll have links in the show notes. I'm sure Tesseract TV is going to be talking about Across the Spider-Verse, right, Curtis?
Oh, we haven't made that decision yet. We
Oh,
should
okay.
we should decide that. So I don't know.
All right. Well, it's not streaming, but at some point it will be. So either way, regardless, regardless, whatever the phrase is, check out Tesseract TV, a Marvel streaming podcast. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
Curtis, you have been a guest before here,
Mm-hmm.
back when we were called something else. I don't even remember what we were called back then, but I'm very happy to have you back now in the Vactor-Verse. This
I'm
is the
here.
the brand new podcast. But you're also a huge Marvel head. Is that right? Is that
I I
is that
think so.
correct? Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
like putting labels on myself like that because then now like somebody's gonna test me. Like it makes me scared.
Actually, yeah, might be a good idea. But I'm
No, that's
glad to
not a
have
great
you here
idea.
to talk about Across the Spider-Verse. Let me get before we get into Across the Spider-Verse, what are your general thoughts on Into the Spider-Verse, the first movie in the series?
Oh, that movie was a big surprise when it came out, right? Like we saw that thinking we
Five
were just
years
gonna
ago.
get wow, 5 years? Ugh. Yeah, we saw that thinking we were just gonna get like a Spider-Man cartoon with Miles in it. We were like, oh, it's gonna be fun. And then they went and like did all this like revolutionary like animation stuff, and then we had our minds blown. So like, yeah,
I
it was a cool
was a
surprise at the
huge
time.
Oh, yeah, and I remember telling my wife, who was my then girlfriend at the time, I said, "This is gonna blow Miles up. This is gonna be what the mainstream is gonna
Mm-hmm.
think of, like, oh, this is the introduction of Miles Morales, because comic people knew about him for a while, but that same year, the PlayStation Spider-Man game came out, and Miles Morales was in that, so I think which is also crazy because this year, 2023, the
Doing it
second movie's
again.
coming out, and the second yeah, so it's Miles, 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 and I love it. I'm here for it, and the current Miles comic book is great, written by Cody Ziegler. So I highly recommend everything Miles that's coming out right now. But let's get into Across the Spider-Verse. That's why we're here, Curtis. And since you are the guest of honor, I want to ask you, what did you think about Across the Spider-Verse?
Ooh, I loved it.
Woo!
It was dope. Uh,
Yeah.
it was a big old. I would consider it a love letter to Spider-Man heads, right? Like there's Easter eggs galore at minimum,
Yes. Oh
and
yeah.
just in the spirit of the things they were confronting. We're doing like full spoilers in here. Like,
Oh
what are
yeah,
we
yeah.
doing?
Let's do full spoilers from the start. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. It's great. You're gonna love it. But be warned, we're gonna be talking about full spoilers from this point on. All right, go,
Hmm.
Curtis, go.
So, like, yeah, with the connective tissue, once they go into the multiverse or whatever, Spider
Oh
Verse, if you
yes,
will,
yes,
and the
yes.
connective tissue being like, hey, you got to lose somebody, son. Like, sorry, that's the way it is. Uh,
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think that is something that is core to Spider-Man's being? Or do you think, and I think what the story we're going to get in the next movie, Beyond the Spider-Verse, we're going to find out that Miles is going to like break that norm and be like, no, you don't have to have a tragedy to be Spider-Man. Anybody can be Spider-Man. What do you think about that
I, I'm
idea?
thinking, I'm thinking that same thing. Like up till now, right? That has been the thread. Like, you always have to have some big tragedy. Um, but I think in the next one they're gonna have Miles be since he's a anomaly anyways, he's gonna be
Yeah.
anomalous in that way, and he's
Yes.
gonna prove everybody wrong.
Which is crazy because it's funny, I was watching the Into the Spider-Verse last night with my wife just to kinda recap a little bit before we talked about it today, and I was like, "Oh, man, they set up that spider glitching even in the
Mhm.
first movie. Like, I didn't even think about that of it being from another universe because in the comics, it's like when they travel to other universes or and even in Loki, like when you have somebody from another universe, they don't glitch. It's just
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh, they're
fine.
there, they're from another universe. So this is like a whole new thing to wrap my head around of, oh, they glitch. So there's a visual cue that they're
Cute,
from
mhm.
another universe.
Because
So
before when we
it
saw that, we just thought it was like, "Oh, they're doing a cool stylistic thing, like the record scratching
yes,
or something."
yes,
It
right,
was like, "Oh, look
right.
at that cool art style," and it's like, "No, that's story important apparently."
Yes, right. They set up a ton of stuff from the
Mhm.
beginning, and even in this movie, and Across the Spider-Verse, they set up a ton of stuff. Because I saw it twice, you've seen it twice at this
Mhm.
point. You told me you're going again a third time.
Yeah.
I'm partially jealous because I kinda wanna see it again a third time, but I also wanna do other stuff in my free time.
Yeah,
So,
right, you gotta do
uh
stuff with your life.
the second time you go back and you're like, "Oh, there's stuff setting up from the beginning." Even in Gwen's storyline where,
Mhm.
her little backstory, there's flashes of what's gonna happen later in the movie, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't notice." Obviously, because I first time seeing it, I didn't know that, but there's a ton of replayability in this movie
Oh, yeah.
of you're gonna pick up on stuff you didn't pick up the first time. Did you have that your second time
The second
through?
time,
Were
yes,
you looking for
the second time I noticed immediately that he was on they telegraph it that he's on the wrong Earth. They put it right there, Earth
Right,
42,
it's
like
on the right, it's on the like, the computer screen, like,
mhm.
it's sending him to Earth 42, and now, full disclosure, I fell asleep my first time watching just because it
Aw,
was late,
tired
so
Vactor.
I woke up and he was in the other universe, and everybody was like all surprised. And I was like, "What's going on?" But watching it the second time, I was like, "Oh yeah, they did telegraph it from the beginning
Mhm.
of the Earth 42." But you also have to kind of be aware that oh wait, his Earth is one
Something
six
with
one
4
zero
digits, yeah.
right, and this new one is 42. So it's like you have to be aware of that at because I think the standard audience member who's not us, who's not keeping up
We're
with
not
that,
paying attention. Yeah, and everything's
right.
going by so fast at that point, like, he's trying to get away, it's a whole chase scene.
That's another thing, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a ton of things, and that's a good point. This whole movie almost is like from there's no slowdown. It's like from start to finish, there's something happening at every point, story-wise. Even before that big chase, there's like it's
Mhm.
just nonstop. So, I like that they jam pack everything. Every minute is like taking advantage, full advantage in this film.
What's
Um
interesting is how many, like, down emotional parts there are, like,
Oh, right,
you would
right.
think with it
There's
being an
less
animated
humor.
movie yeah,
Right,
you
right,
would think they
from
would,
the
like
first one, because the first one, there's a ton of jokes, there's a ton of laughs, and this one, it's like, "Whoa, there's" uh, I'm in my feelings for this one. There's
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple moments that it's like and the music plays into that, so I like that. Did you, were you missing the jokes? Were you missing the humor, or did you
Oh,
like
no,
that?
no, no, it was fine, I just thought it was an interesting choice,
Yes, yeah,
especially for, like, something animated where you think, the jokes are gonna be back to back to back, or,
right,
like, the urge to pack it with action because you
mhm,
can, but they played this like, a live action movie, you're gonna have
right.
your emotional beats, like, I love that they gave Rio, his mom, so much time.
Oh, man.
She had so many moments in this one as
Mm,
compared to the other one where it was all his dad. Um
yeah. And I love that because, just me personally, my wife is Latina, so
mhm.
my grandmother, is Latina, so they're speaking Spanish all the time when I go over to their house. I don't know what's going on, but my son also now, I feel like he's gonna be raised in that same way Miles is being
Right.
raised speaking English, speaking Spanish. So, there was, like I felt there was a ton of reasons I felt a personal connection to this movie, a lot of it being parentage, but also
Mhm.
that, the Latino side of it, I felt strongly that, there's a moment where Miles leans into Rio and he asks for her permission, like her blessing in Spanish, and I didn't pick up on that my first time viewing, but I was watching, like, an interview with the actress that plays Rio, and she was talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, dang." So I watched it the second time, and I heard it, he kinda whispers it, and then she gives him the blessing, and then he goes off
Oh.
chasing after Gwen. So, there's, like, a ton of not Easter eggs, but the care in the
Mhm.
details of this movie where it's like, this is authentic to the there's the Black experience, the
Mhm.
Latino experience, the New York experience,
Mhm.
like, just the coming of age, feeling like you're a teenager and, like, your parents are, "Man, get off my back." Like,
Mhm.
there's so many real things in this movie, like, emotionally, and like you said, it's not, oh, you go into it expecting like, "Hey, it's gonna be a cartoon or whatever," but it's like, this is an emotional, realistic journey that Miles goes through. So I'm glad you brought that up because the Rio specifically, I felt like she didn't have as big a spotlight in the first movie, and so this
Right.
one, there's a ton of great stuff with her.
I also kind of respect the choice that they didn't put subtitles for the Spanish stuff. They were just like,
Oh,
if you know,
right,
you
right,
know. Like I kind
right,
of
right.
respect that.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a ton of stuff that's doing that nowadays too. Because I was just reading a Blue Beetle comic the other day, Blue Beetle Graduation Day, which is
Okay.
great if anybody hasn't read it. And the Spanish, there's no translation of the Spanish. There's,
Really?
like, whole pages of Spanish, and I'm like, I gotta ask my wife, "What is he saying at this moment?" But it is, I think, our country, we're just getting now to the point where it's like, hey, there's enough Spanish, and like you said, they just trust you to be
Mhm.
like, hey, if you want to, I mean, you can get it from the context of what
Right,
they're
exactly.
like, what they're speaking, but if you really want to, you can Google it, or you can ask somebody who speaks Spanish, or you probably speak Spanish. So there's enough people now in the country that it is to that point now. So that I like that as well. A lot of media is doing that now. So
Yeah, you
that
gotta
was
treat it
cool.
like real life. You're not gonna get subtitles in real life, so if you're
Right,
around
that's right.
somebody, they speak in another language, you just
Yeah,
gotta pick up on it, see what's happening.
100%. That's
Yeah.
right. Did you I wanna know your audience's reaction because both times I've seen it, the Donald Glover
Oh, that was
cameo gets a
huge.
huge reaction,
Huge, yeah.
and it's like you were saying earlier, like, if you know, you know, his whole connection to he was the inspiration for Miles Morales,
Yep.
going back to Community, and then in
It all
the,
started as a joke, man.
yeah, and that joke is in the first movie, like, if you don't catch it, in Uncle Aaron's apartment, it's that, scene is playing on the TV, so they even give,
I don't even
like,
think I caught that before.
yeah, it was one that I forgot, but I remembered it when I watched it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, they did put that in here." But that's even the attention to detail in the first one, like the Easter eggs that are in the background and everything is great. So in this one, there's like I said, the Donald Glover thing is the connection is so deep with him. He played that character in that first Tom Holland, um, was it is it Homecoming, Spider-Man
Homecoming, he
Homecoming, I'm
played
right.
Aaron, yeah,
Yeah,
He
he
played Uncle
plays
Aaron, and
Aaron.
he mentions his nephew,
Yeah, so that was like,
the
uh,
setup.
a way throwback. So that is who he plays in this as the Prowler
So then
and
that means that he's gone on his, like, Prowler
Yeah,
version thing off screen now?
yes. And then what's interesting about that is, have you heard they're doing a Miles live action movie's in the works now?
Sure.
They've greenlit it, and I wonder if they're gonna tie into that, if Donald Glover's gonna be in the background or if he's a main character of the movie. What are they gonna do with that? So that's gonna be interesting.
It's
Um
difficult for me to get all, like, excited about that when there's a writer strike going on right now, like, I need them
Yeah,
to chill. Don't be
right.
greenlighting stuff, chill out, please, thank you.
Right. 100%, 'cause it's like there's so many TV shows that they got put on the back burner now, and
Yep.
movies that it was like, "Man, I was really looking forward to that," but the writer's strike, there is everything has been put, like, on a hold right now, but I just love the care and the detail that they put Donald Glover in there. They had him as a live action character. It's like the Roger Rabbit thing of like,
Right.
alright, there's animation and there's live action, and they had that with the Venom when
Mhm, the
Spot
Venom
goes into
lady, a
the
lot of
Venom.
people pop
Yeah.
for her too.
Yeah, I was surprised. So I was like, "Oh, this crowd knows what's going on." But that's usually like the opening day crowds,
Right.
they know what's going on. Plus, there's like a lot of cosplayers. I was like, "All right, this audience knows what's going on." But yeah, that was cool, the Venom thing, which I know you're a huge fan of Venom 2, right? That's a
Oh.
movie that you were telling me off mic
Oh,
how
you
much you
are
love that movie.
funny. Funny, funny, funny.
Uh, which I am also not a fan of, alongside Curtis, but it is interesting when Sony, like, connects all their stuff together because it's like I feel like Spider-Man's the only thing that Sony really has right now. The only thing that they can lean on is and the numbers for Across the Spider-Verse, like, the box office
It's
numbers are
already
going
crazy.
crazy right now. But, yeah, the Venom thing and then this Craven movie that's coming out, I don't know what that's gonna be like, not
Right, that's a
I don't
big mystery.
yeah, I don't have high hopes for that, but being a Spider-Man fan, that tying to
You
the
gotta watch it.
franchise, yeah, I gotta watch it. So, yeah, but it was interesting, like you said, like, there was no Spider-Ham, like, there's no the huge comedy like, there's comedy in there, there's some funny jokes in this movie, but it's not like the first one where it was like, I would say, I don't know, 75%
Mhm.
split of comedy, like, there was a lot more in that first film,
I mean,
and
the only through line character that we get through this one is, like, Gwen for the longest time. It's her
right,
and
right,
Miles, because we
right,
don't even get, the other Peter that we're used to
right.
until much later in the film.
Yeah, which is kinda like that I felt kinda weird because they were such a part of that first film, that the whole crew of Spider-Man Noir and Penny
Mhm.
Parker and all of them, like, it felt like which at the end of this movie, when they come up, it's like, "Yeah, we got the gang back together." So there is that emotional payoff, but it felt kinda weird throughout this one, and it is like you said, you could look at it as this is from Gwen's perspective for a lot of the movie. It
Mhm.
switches back and forth between Gwen and Miles, but even going back to that opening, like, I looked at my watch, I was like, "Oh, this is 20 minutes of Gwen to start the movie, and then we get to Miles, and we get to see
Yeah,
what
which
he's
is a
been up
bold
to."
choice.
And what did you think about that art style of Gwen's universe, that watercolor,
It's so
like,
cool.
I like, when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, this is" that we haven't even talked about that. The animation in this movie is you talked about the first one being revolutionary. I think this one is also gonna be I think we're gonna look at both of these movies when we look back on them and say, "Those were the standards. They set the
Mhm.
bar for animation." And I would say my one not gripe, but I think, like, my one down thing about this movie is how are they gonna top it for
Top
the
it,
next
right.
one? Because it's like the they're doing so many things with the different animation styles and the different, art styles for each universe, and then on top of that, I felt like the fluidity of the animation, because I was even going back to the first one and looking at the animation, comparing it to this one, I was like, they just move smoother, and it almost looks like motion capture. When I was watching the way that they move, I was like, "This looks realistic." And Miles has so many facial expressions where,
Right.
like, he
Under the
looks like
mask.
a yeah, and he looks like like I said, authentic realism, like, it just looks like that's a guy that's my boy right there, that's Miles, and, even on his parents, like, the way that the lips match the voice, and the first one, it didn't quite sync up as well, and I think
Mhm.
that was just the limitations of the animation, but they were doing stuff with frame rates and different things in the first one that was like p that people are just now getting caught up to that 5 years later with, like, the Puss in Boots movie, this Turtles movie that's coming out,
Yeah,
like
now everybody's aping that stuff, so, like, it's
right,
gonna happen again with this
yeah.
one.
I think that's 100%. This movie, the the bar that they set for the animation, it blew me away,
There were so
like
many
you
times I was like, I don't even know how they not that I know how animation works in the first
right.
place, let me be clear, like, I don't know how it works, like, it's cool, but, like,
Yeah,
there were so many times I was super like, "How did they do that?" Like, a
right.
lot of the swinging scenes, like,
Yeah,
just beautiful,
man,
like, they just put those in there, and they're just having conversations, and I'm like,
right.
"Oh my god, this is
That
stunning."
was crazy, like, they're hanging upside down at one point, swinging from their legs,
Yeah.
and that scene where, Miles and Gwen are upside down, and you're seeing the perspective of the city upside down,
Mhm.
like, that Curtis kiss, like, there's so much great stuff in this movie, animation-wise. It's like, I can't even for the rest of this year, I can't see another movie being better than this movie. Just for me personally, like this hits every beat for me of a fan, and I can't maybe I'm trying to lower my expectations. I'm seeing Flash in a couple days, and that might be the only one that might compete with this one. But I think this is going to be my favorite movie for the rest of the year, and even going forward. Like I said, I think it's going to be hard for them to top this one with the next one. So we'll see. But I wanted to ask you because there's two things that I heard people not liking from this movie.
Okay.
The first one, did you know this was a part 1?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I have had to tell so many people, and they were like, "I had no
I
idea,"
know.
which
Apparently, that didn't get around.
part of it is marketing because I even have a shirt, I didn't wear it today, but I have a shirt that says Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. So
They were
they were
originally going to
making
do that. I remember
yeah,
that
they were making up shirts back in the day, and they switched it. They did the Infinity War,
type
strategy
thing.
where
They're
it
like,
was
we're
like
just going
yeah,
to do another title,
right,
which is,
which
I don't know. You
I'm
can
li
go either way on that.
yeah, I'm 50-50 on that because 'cause I'm like, I would have liked it to be a part 1 and part 2 because thematically with the story, when we get into this next one, it is gonna be a direct pickup of where they left off in this one. So why not call it a part 2? I have no problem
And
with
let
that.
people know so that they're not all mad
Right,
at the end. Because
right. That
both
yeah.
times when I went, my theater was like, oh, there was a kid who yelled, "What the F" at the end. I was like, okay, kid, calm down. You probably need your butt whooped. Like, I don't know where your mom at, but like,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I can see that. So I also knew it going into it, so I wasn't confused, but I was just surprised that a lot of people just didn't know.
yeah, that was
Um,
not out there the way I thought it was. And
yeah,
I was
so
like,
that was
that let me know like how like into the movie news I am. I was like, oh,
oh,
I'm a
right, right.
big old
Yes,
movie nerd because I
I'm
knew
the
this, but like,
yeah, I'm the same way. And the second thing, a lot of people I've seen complain about the audio being too low.
yes,
In your
yes.
2 showings, was it low?
Yeah, there was a they definitely did something weird with the sound mixing in some places. Yeah, that's literally my only big complaint about the movie is the sound mixing at spots.
Yeah,
Um,
when I saw it, the first time, it was in Dolby Atmos, and I had trouble hearing him, and really, you know what it was Spider-Punk's accent was so thick a lot of times,
oh
I'm like,
yeah,
"What is he saying?" The second time I saw it in IMAX, and I was that one, it seemed a little bit louder, and I was able to understand him a little bit better, but I wonder in people's experiences, is that gonna take away and be like, "Oh, this movie's not as good because I couldn't hear what they were saying." Because I had that with Christopher Nolan movies a lot of times. Remember where, Dark Knight Rises where Bane was like,
and we had all that dialogue. Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
And he was like,
so
"It's supposed to be that way." Blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, calm down.
yeah. So I wonder what, people's experiences with this one's gonna be, but when Curtis sees it a 3rd time, I want him to report back to me and to every listener here and let us know what his 3rd experience was like.
The
Like,
Spider Punk
um
stuff is fun because I think it's like partly on purpose that you don't understand
yeah,
him.
right, right.
Uh,
Which
but the second time I picked up a lot more of his dialogue.
yes, I did too as well, and I can't wait to watch it as well on home video, and I'm gonna put the captions on. I'm gonna be
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Alright, what exactly are they saying?"
we're gonna catch so many more jokes.
Yeah, and I'll be able to pause it and be like, "Okay, which Spider-Man is this?" Because I picked out and I was pointing out to my wife, I was like, "Alright, that's that Spider-Man, that's that
hmm
Spider-Man." But to be able to pause it and look at all of them clearly, I'm sure they'll have some special feature on the DVD or the Blu-ray and be like, "Alright, here's every single Spider-Man that's in this movie." But, speaking of Spider-Punk, what did you think? Because that was my wife's new favorite character. She
Oh, he was
loved
dope.
Daniel Kaluuya. I also liked him as well, and his art style was like kind of this it's very that punk aesthetic, that album cover, like,
With
the
like
Ramones
with
and,
like
uh
magazine kind of heading stuff
yeah,
or
right,
something in
like
there,
the
like
cutting out
clippings or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
different words and the letters. So, I love that style. I wasn't expecting that because most of his comics are just, straight
hmm
out, this way he looks like, and then he's a skin in the Spider-Man game, so he just looks normal, but in this one, they went all out on the style. The aesthetic choices for every single universe was crazy, and I wonder if we'll get actually to see his universe in the second film. That's another thing. It's like, man, they got a lot of stuff to wrap up in the
hmm
second film of how they gonna deal with the Spot, how they gonna deal with Miles's anomaly being
Nature, and we
the
got a whole
yeah,
doppelganger thing going
that
on
whole
with.
thing. Him and his family, like
hmm
his both parents. He got issues with both of his parents. The Gwen storyline, like her and her dad, even though he
I
kind
think
of
that one might be wrapped up, so we might be safe on that one.
you know what was crazy was I was watching the first movie. Did you think about this? She meets him before he gets bit, at that school, and I was like, so she got to that universe a week early. She infiltrated the school. She infiltrated Alchemex because she's working at Alchemex. Where is she living during this time? Is she just on the street this whole time? They don't explain what Spider Gwen is doing
Well, we can't show the
before.
kids that Gwen was homeless. Can't have the kids seeing Gwen homeless.
That's yeah. I
Let's let's assume she broke in somewhere. She's a spider
yeah.
person. She could break into a penthouse somewhere that's not occupied.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I'll go with Curtis's reading on that one. But yeah, like there's just a ton of stuff that they got to wrap up in this next one, and got to bring the crew back, got to get all
hmm
those spider people, and
It
then the
might be more
multiverse.
focused. I wonder how much of the Spider Verse stuff they're gonna go into in the next one because it seems like they got all their okay. Here's your Easter egg of Spider People stuff out the
Hmm.
way in this one. So maybe with them getting the team back together, the main team that we're more familiar with from the first one, this one might be more focused on just that the emotional through line of that.
Yeah, and the title of the third one being Beyond the Spider-Verse, because I was thinking about the Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, and Beyond the Spider-Verse. Yeah, maybe it's getting beyond the multiverse stuff and just kind of focusing on Miles. Um, but you being a Tesseract TV boy, you have a ton of multiverse stuff with Loki and
Oh
all the
yeah,
different branching timelines that
and
they
they
talked
even kind
about.
of paid homage to that.
Yeah, I love that. When I saw that, I was like, "Yeah, this is, connecting the MCU and
hmm
the Sony universe." I don't know what they call the Sonyverse. Um, I was really excited about that. When you first saw that, like, was your Tesseract brain, uh, fizzling? Was it fizzy dizzling?
I can't with you. I did not actually, the first time I saw it, I didn't really pick up on it, and then the second time, I was like, "Oh, they're doing the little
Mm.
whole Kane timeline thing."
Yeah, yeah,
Before it, like, turns into, like, the circles with the Spider-Verse
yeah.
webbing stuff. Um, yeah, I didn't pick up on the tree part branches and stuff until, like, the second time, and I thought
So
that was
that's
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, it's cool that they incorporate, like you said, the MCU stuff, but then also the Spider Verse or the Spider, the Web of Destiny and Life and Destiny. That's from the comics, and that the whole Spider Verse crossover stuff. So it's cool that they're incorporating both the movie stuff and the comic stuff together into one, and hybridization
Mhm.
of these two things, which has always been cool. That was cool in the first one when they were able to take the comic stuff and, blending it everything, and then also create their own, because there's a ton of stuff that Miles does in these movies that he doesn't do in the comics, that he like the graffiti aspect of it.
Right.
Like that's none of that is from the comics. So they have created their own version of Miles,
Mhm.
and I think that's the one that is going to be the most popular one going forward. Most mainstream people are going to be seeing the movie rather than reading the comics. Unfortunately, um, as a comic fan, but I love like I said, everything that they did in this movie, the care and the detail of, you could tell these people really care about this stuff. The canon,
Mhm.
like they really kind of break the fourth wall with that. And that brings a smile to my heart. I think the love of comics comes through in this movie. So I was just happy to see that.
Yeah,
Um,
and how
did you
much
have
they had to juggle because it's like, good lord, you have to juggle a lot, and for this movie to still make sense, like, that's a
Oh,
feat in and
yeah.
of itself.
Yeah. There's a ton of stuff, which another thing, I just thought about it as you said that, the juggling and the incorporation even goes back to the first movie. They kind of actively have put the Spot was there the whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, good
He
old
was the
retcon.
he was the
The
guy that
bagel
got hit with the
guy.
bagel, which I watched the first movie again last night, and I was like, "Wait a minute. Oh, there
There
he
he
is.
go.
That's him." So,
That's where
yeah,
you
I
ended your whole world right there, Miles.
yeah, I thought that was great. Which and we didn't even talk about the Spot. Jason Schwartzman
Great
as the
job.
Spot. Yeah, they did a great job on his character design, on his like the threat, because at the beginning he's kind of like goofy, stealing the
Mhm.
ATM machine, but as it becomes bigger and bigger, it's like, how are they gonna this like a Thanos level? How are they gonna stop him? Because his powers are so heavy. Like he could
Mhm.
do anything. He can go anywhere and he can teleport, you know, how do you beat somebody like that? Even we saw even in his first encounter, Miles is trying to web him up and the webs just go through his holes, his spots. So how are they gonna do that for this next movie? It's gonna be crazy. So
If
I
you ever
like
get a nemesis in the future, don't tell them that they're just a villain of the week. That hurts their feelings, and you might cause something that you're not ready for.
100%. And Curtis has dealt with many
So many
nemesi in his life. So
nemesis.
you should know that
I
Curtis
do.
knows.
Haters on me.
What was there anything that you just like loved when you stepped out of the theater, either the first or the second time? Was there something that just you said, man, they did a great job on blank?
You know what? It's gonna sound silly and small, but they had like a few scenes where like Miles was getting back into like civilian wear,
Oh,
or
right, right,
like,
right.
and
Mhm.
then like the camera would pan around him in like a weird way where he's like maneuvering and stuff. And
Yes,
I'm just like,
yes.
how are they doing? Like, it blew my mind. It is such a small thing, but like the way they were, I don't know, the way they animated that, it was so cool. I had never seen anything like that before.
That was
It's just
great. I
it's
loved
very small moments, but it's just like,
yeah. And that's what I think it's the little things add up to become big, and that's what makes this movie great overall, is like there's a million little things that are fantastic, and they all add up to be this greater thing. I think, like, they had 3 they credit 3 directors on this
okay,
movie, and it's like the just everyone involved in this movie, and you could see the amount of people in the animation
oh
staff
yeah, I
that
know they
worked
was
on it.
working.
It this everything pays off, like, everybody who worked on this movie did a fantastic
Oh
job,
yeah.
and it's hard to say anything bad about the movie, like,
Did you have a favorite like part?
there was there's a number of things that, like I said, resonated with me personally, and so, looking at this one as a dad, the all of the stuff with Jeff, his dad, where he's like, "Man, you turn around and they're grown up," like,
Hmm.
I'm not at that point yet, but I'm thinking about because my son is 2 years old right now, so he's
Hmm.
not even close to where Miles is, but I'm thinking about, like, trying to, um, be in the moment with my
Hmm.
son and make sure I don't, take this time for granted with him and it'd be like, "Oh, turn around, he's
I
18.
missed
Alright, he's
everything.
gone."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this movie, it kinda makes me appreciate the time with my son and also maybe try not to be so hard on him, like try to be a good father, be a good disciplinary, but also, hey man, get off his back.
Look at
So
you taking notes from movies.
I had a ton of stuff of like just family, and even with Peter B, which, like you said, we don't see him for a large portion of the movie, but then he comes in near the end
With
as that
Mayday.
yeah. His relationship with Mayday reminded me of my son right now. She's often seen with only one sock on,
Uh
and
huh.
my son is like that. Tell me to turn around, he's throwing his socks around, and he's got one sock on. But there must be parents in this
Oh
movie
yeah.
because they know, like, the way
The
that
little
babies and
details. Uh huh.
toddlers behave. So that also and there was that scene with Peter and Mary Jane where he brought Mayday back and she's asleep in the crib. Number 1, my son sleeps like that, so that was funny. My wife was like, "Look." And then also his, like, did you take her out into the battle? And, like, that whole scene, I felt it as a dad. So, there was a ton of stuff like that that I loved about the movie. And
Mhm.
then the the music, stood out to me. I was waiting for this soundtrack to come out. It didn't come out until the Friday that it released, and, I had seen the movie on, Tuesday. I saw it at a, advanced screening, and I was waiting for the music to come out, and I was listening to it in the car the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, this is, like, from start to finish, I like the soundtrack." But the emotional moments between Miles and, Gwen and him and his parents, like, all
All that stuff
There's
hit. Yeah,
so many things
there's a lot.
that are
Yeah,
great about this movie. It's like, yeah, like I said, it's hard for me to find a bad thing to talk about. And even that the ending where he's in the other universe, it brought back those Back to the Future 2 vibes for me, which
right.
Back
Yeah,
to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. So that alternate, like, oh, my dad is gone.
yeah. Don't mess
Everything
something
is
up.
bad. There's an evil version of me walking around. It's like all of that stuff. A lot of people I saw calling this like the Empire Strikes Back of Spider-Man, but I think it's like the Back to the Future
I think that's
2
better. Yeah.
of Spider-Man movies. And it's like that uh alternate timeline, and what do you do to fix it? And man, when they showed that alternate Miles with the braids, and he was like, I'm Morales, I'm Miles Morales. I was like, yeah. So they're just some great, everything about this movie is great. I love it. So I can't wait to see the next one. And it's only going to be like 9 months until the next one comes out next March.
Unless they push something back, we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good
I know
point.
how this works. I've been around the
So
block.
I'm gonna go positive. Curtis gonna go negative. So
I'm
we'll
not going negative. I'm just saying, don't be too attached to dates.
I'll
Don't
be
get attached to dates.
optimistic. Curtis will be
Oh my
pessimistic.
gosh.
But either way, I want Curtis to come back and talk Beyond the Spider-Verse when that
We're gonna
comes
go
out.
beyond.
Yeah, I can't wait. In the meantime, you can catch Curtis, like I said, consuming chicken and
I don't eat on my podcast.
talking all things Marvel streaming on
Yeah.
Tesseract TV. So I want you guys to check that out. Curtis, do you have anything specific coming up on Tesseract TV?
Well, we just put out our episode for Guardians 3, Guardians of the
Yeah.
Galaxy 3, so we just did that one. And we're waiting for Secret Invasion to drop, and that'll be in a few weeks. And
Man, I
we'll
can't
see what's going
wait.
on with that. Some good old
Oh
Sam
my
Jackson
goodness.
action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is going to be fantastic. But thank you very much, Curtis, for joining me.
Thanks for having me, bro.
This was fantastic. I always love talking to you, and you are the life of the party. Every time you are around, there's like this spark of joy. So I always appreciate you. So I just want to give you your flowers,
Oh,
Curtis,
I
while you're
appreciate
still
you
here.
saying that, but like you are not allowed to make me emotional in public. Thank you. That
But
is in my
everybody check
contract.
out everybody check out what Curtis is doing over at Tesseract TV. Like I said, I'll have links in the show notes. And also stay tuned to the Vactor-Verse because I've got a lot of friends who want to
Ooh.
talk about it. So instead of
Ooh.
having 90,000 people on the same podcast, we're going to have multiple episodes. So I've got a
Nice.
couple more lined up. So there's going to be more Spider Talk. So stay tuned to the Vactor-Verse. But as always, Curtis loves comics, and you should too.
You should.